All right, so we have some big things happening within the crypto markets, and it is Easter Monday. So the question is, can we trust the pump? Can we trust the current move happening within the crypto markets? And what will the equities markets do later when they do open? We'll discuss all this and a whole lot more in today's show. Smash the like button, hit the bell notification, and subscribe to the channel. Let's go, let's go. A lot of this we're looking at, we somewhat planned for this, right? We're targeting the yearly opens across the board on a whole lot of the coins, and you're starting to get the squeeze. We spoke about the possibility of a counter trend rally, but the real question remains, is the actual bottom in? Is the bull run back? Or is this just going to be another relief rally met as a dead cat bounce, which is going to get slammed towards the downside? We need a little bit more information, but the puzzle pieces are slowly but surely coming together. And in today's show, I'm going to show you exactly why and how those puzzle pieces are coming together. Remember, we did speak about this exact trade opportunity over here in the Discord, as well as covered on the shows. If you watch the shows each and every day, you would have been participating on the right side of this, which was the reclaim of the Monday low and then targeting back to the yearly open, possibly even the previous month's high. That puts you at $92,000 to $95,000 Bitcoin price. And that's where we need to see what Bitcoin bulls are made of. Can they maintain price action at those levels, or is it going to be met with a massive rejection and engineered liquidity that's going to send price cascading down to $72,000, which was one of the key levels at the fair value gap that we outlined many months ago? So let's get straight into the show content over here. Big things coming into the market. The China-US tariff wars are heating up, right? If you look at this, China just came out warning other countries against trade deals, basically saying if they undermine them, then they may just cut them off, right? If this does actually happen, of course, this is going to start to spark major trade wars. Some are referring this as to, or at least to this as World War III, but in a more economic sense, as opposed to, physical warfare, right? So a lot to look at. Trump then came out after this. He said the golden rule of negotiating and success: he who has the gold makes the rules. Thank you very much. And where does that place gold? Well, if you look at gold, straight back up to new all-time highs. So what's going to happen next? Only time will tell. We saw the largest weekly inflows in history, and gold is going absolutely parabolic. Now, usually when gold goes parabolic, this is a signal that something dangerous is happening within the markets, right? But we did actually look at this over the course of the weekend show I did on Saturday, where I spoke about the correlation between gold and the S&P 500 and what typically happens when gold goes parabolic. And long story short, the results were somewhat 50-50, and I think it depends on many other factors and where the economic policy remains, which ultimately means the stock market can run too. So we'll find out very, very soon. As it currently stands, the stock market is currently range bound. This, looking at the US equity markets, the big level to reclaim is going to be this breakdown level over here. That's going to be still 5,800. Nothing has changed with regards to this. We've been looking at that for quite a long period of time. You're putting in a series of lower lows and lower highs, and this could be yet another lower high, but ultimately we're treating this more as a ranging market than a trending market right now, and we'll see where price goes once it takes out either the high or the low of that trend. However, Bitcoin is doing something very, very, very different, right? Bitcoin is holding up really well, and it seems to be continuing to do so. So is this an indication that people are treating Bitcoin as gold 2.0? Well, only time will tell, right? But one thing we know for certain is we planned for the breakdown of the DXY for quite a long period of time. We're viewing this as the deviation above the top side of the trading range over there, breaking back into the trading range. And then we wanted to trade it back into the other direction. And that's exactly what we've got. And there's just absolutely no bid over here on this DXY chart. The dollar weakening against a basket of other currencies and fast approaching the multi-decade trend line. Now, these charts are incredible. Charts tend to repeat, or at least respect these levels, and then history tends to repeat. So my expectation would be, as this comes into this key level over here, there will be a massive rebound. Typically, when the DXY goes up, risk on assets struggle. When the DXY goes down, risk on assets tend to catch a bid. In this instance, we've obviously seen something quite different, where we've had this massive move down, but the risk on assets continue to struggle. So is this last bit of the leg going to lead into the bounce? Well, things are getting very, very interesting, right? So I will trade this at the extremities and pay close attention to all things Bitcoin, crypto, and TradFi as you do come into those key levels. What we're currently witnessing is something similar occurring over here on the USDT dominance. Now, USDT dominance is our crypto version of the equivalent of TradFi participants looking at the DXY. When the DXY goes up, you tend to see risk on assets go down. When the DXY goes down, you tend to see risk on assets move towards the upside. Well, we do the same thing using this chart over here, and you can see the parallel trend line over here, which has now started to break down right at this yellow bar or the yellow circle over here. And I'm viewing this as the potential for an order block that could lead into a pretty big move towards the downside. Now, your next level of major support is going to be coming in around that 5% level. So we need to monitor this chart very, very, very carefully. Basically, you need to view this as trading the rest of the market in an inverted fashion. What that means is this, right? Let's say hypothetically this was the order block that led to the breakdown, and you're viewing this as a short trade. To invalidate this move, you would need to, similar to Bitcoin when it broke down, reclaim the top side of the order block, which means theoretically you could be long crypto as this starts to break down and approach these key levels, right? So that's kind of the trade setup that you're currently looking at, is a move like this down towards 5%. That's probably going to lead into a bounce. So you're looking at something like that. And that bounce I would expect is probably going to lead into a lower high. And the reason why is because this parallel channel has been respected since last year, November, grinding the USDT dominance onwards and upwards with higher highs and higher lows. What this means is for the first time in many months, we may be witnessing the first shift within the market. But I think that, as the saying goes, not over till the fat lady sings. The fat lady sings at $95,000. That's where we need to see what happens at $95,000. And I would expect that $95,000 level gets hit as the USDT dominance comes down into this 5% level. There's probably going to be a bit of a pullback over there. If it does lead into the pullback and rejection and this breaks down, well, then the fat lady sung, and basically we would have seen the low of the market at that $74,000 level. Narrowly missing the fair value gap that we targeted at 72,000, but that was only one of 3 fair value gaps, right? So a lot of interesting things starting to play out over here. I think high time to pay attention while most of the people are sitting chomping on their chocolate Easter eggs. So a lot happening over here. If you are in Whale Room, you've been updated over the course of the Easter weekend. We've kept you up to date every single step of the way, looking at the low liquidity and suggesting at least that one of these big moves could happen. Now, many of you have been messaging me to still ask, is the Easter special still available for Whale Room? The answer is absolutely yes, it is. But it ends today, right? There it is. Use the promo code RISEN27 linked in the description below over there, and you can save yourself 27% if you do want to jump into Whale Room. All right, let's continue on over here. So one of the things we looked at as well over the course of the weekend, which is what we wanted to wait to see, a bit of a better confirmation signal to suggest that we could trust this pump. And you may be asking, do I trust this pump? As it currently stands, yes, I do. I have to be a little bit cautious because it is a low liquidity environment, low volume environment. We, of course, are over the course of an Easter weekend, a long weekend in most countries within the world, which means you can see trap scenarios and could trade similar to weekend price action despite today being Monday. So we do need to be careful of this. But we've seen multiple puzzle pieces come together, one of which was weeks ago, we're looking for the daily RSI to break out of the downtrend. We saw that. We got confirmation back above the 50 level. Holding that key zone was vitally important. We then said that that's going to be an early indication that you're going to start to see a breakout of the RSI, leaving that downsloping trend line on the weekly scale too. And we've officially got that confirmation. We spoke about it on Saturday as well, where we said we need to see Bitcoin closing at those current levels or higher in order to confirm that breakout. And that's exactly what we got. So we can have a look over here at the relative strength on Bitcoin, and we spoke about this within each of these market cycles over here. It's been really, really important to hold the 50 level, right? In order to maintain that parabolic move towards the upside in cycle 1. And if we have a look over here in cycle 2, it was the same thing, right? You didn't want to see the RSI break below 50. Once you broke below 50 over there and you maintained and held below the 50 mark, you did ultimately confirm that the top was in and lead into a bear market. And then you can have a look at the third cycle, which was this one over here. It was exactly the same thing, maintaining that 50 mark all the way throughout. And if we go to this current cycle that we're in here, well, you can see bulls have been fighting tooth and nail, and bears have also been fighting tooth and nail to try and take control of that 50 level. Right now, as it currently stands, the RSI is at 51.9. And we have actually seen the breakout of that weekly RSI. There it is. We now have confirmation. Last week, we said we need to be cautious. As soon as we start to get a confirmation and a break above this level, the chances start to drastically increase that the low is in, at least a local low. I'm not calling for the ultimate low, because remember, Bitcoin could still theoretically squeeze to the yearly opens as well as the rest of the altcoins, which has been part of the plan, and then reject from that level, building enough momentum to go down to new lows. That is always a possibility, right? But as it currently stands, we have got the confirmation of that break. Now, what does this look like previously within this particular bull run that we've had since the lows that occurred from FTX all the way down here? Every break of that trend line, if you waited for the confirmation, you missed the first week's pump, right? Which would look something like this. We can quickly pull this up on the chart. Basically, you would have missed that very, very first pump. So there it was. You missed that candle, but you still participated in that. If you look at this one over here, you missed the first candle, which was only that candle over there, but you participated in that. And now we've officially got that first break. And the question is, what comes next? Are we going to actually get the same type of move, right? Are we actually going to put something in like this? Are we going to move to new all-time highs? I don't know. I don't need to know. All that I need to know as a trader is that we take it level to level and we play it into the next area of resistance, which is going to be coming in at that $92,000 region, right? 92 to 95. But there's an important thing taking place over here, which is momentum. The bulls will have the opportunity to drastically shift the momentum. And in a low volume, low liquidity environment, if they decide to start to bid and players jump in, beginning to chase price action, that's where you can start to see some of the biggest squeezes. So as long as you're playing at level to level, you should be okay. Despite the current move that we're having right now across both altcoins and Bitcoin, you're still seeing the 24-hour liquidations remain relatively low. 216 million. That's absolutely nothing. Remember, this is considered a low volume environment. Over the course of the weekend, this dropped down to around 100. So yes, it's gone up a lot. If you look at the 24-hour volume on the top over here, it's gone up almost 100%, right? It's gone up 64% in the last 24 hours, but over the last 48 to 72 hours, it's done about 100% move. So what we need to see is we need to see the daily exchange volume tick up. This is going to be an extra piece of the puzzle in alignment with that weekly RSI breakout, right? So as it currently stands, do I trust this pump? Well, yes, I do, as long as price remains above yesterday's low. As long as you maintain above yesterday's low, the chances are that you're probably going to challenge to reclaim the orange line, which still remains the level to beat in order to shift the structure. If you can see bulls breaking that 88,700 and maintaining higher lows throughout, that would be the indication that you've broken structure and potentially even reversed the entire trend. And then you're going to see some great trade opportunities, right? But understand there's a lot of resistance over here, right? This is a big underside resistance level, this whole area, high volume, points of control. That's a big, 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 big level to get above. One step at a time. First level to reclaim 88,000, then 92,000. And then if you can start to get above $95,000, you're talking about the possibility of going to new all-time highs. We're not there yet, right? Absolutely, we're not there yet. Understand that as this move plays out, I dropped this in whale room over here. I'm expecting probably a push up, a deviation above $88,000. And then you're probably going to come back down again towards that 85K region. And then you might run it one more time into 95. And that's going to be the short squeeze playing out. Then we lead into the bear moon in about a week's time, and we need to see what Bitcoin bulls are made of in that environment. Do they manage the rejection in a couple of weeks' time to still hold up around that $80,000, giving the possibility of what we've also spoken about a lot, a left shoulder over here. There it is, left shoulder. You have your head, which would be formed over here, and then you would be placing in your right shoulder. And that's kind of the plan of action, right? That's the high time frame plan of action. So left shoulder, head, lows are in, price rallies up, rejects off that level, comes in to put in the right shoulder, and then slowly grinds up into June, July. That's a longer term plan, right? So, some free lunch for you guys, right? Still, volume is low. Volume is diminishing over here, which again is why you have to be relatively cautious. but these squeezes can be big in a low volume environment. We also had a look at Bitcoin dominance, which is coming into a key level, 0.786 to 0.886. That puts it at 66 to 69%. I think that's going to be the sweet spot where you're looking for a potential next rejective zone for the Bitcoin dominance. And if we move on to the daily time frame, well, it has been relatively strong, right? The Bitcoin dominance undoubtedly is very, very powerful. What I want to see, and I'm more interested in, is also the trajectory, because if we do play out what I've just suggested to you, which is the possibility for an inverse head and shoulders over here, left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, and I told you that right shoulder may form towards the end of May, and then you slowly grind up into June, July, and the bull run is back on. If that does happen, where does the trajectory of the Bitcoin dominance take us? Well, that does take you into June, right? If you continue at this path, you're going to be coming into the yellow zone around that June, July time period, right? So there's a lot that needs to happen from the bulls in order to actually shift things. But we have seen some interesting things taking place, like ETH-BTC coming into a clear monthly demand level. Not only that, but you're also sitting on a monthly 9 count, a TD sequential 9 count. This is a reversal count, right? Usually you go for 9 consecutive candles in a row, and at the very least, you're looking at 1 to 4 candles of price moving in the opposite direction, and then you can see if it can reverse the trend or not. So interesting environment, interesting place for ETH-BTC. As well, am I advocating that you long ETH here? No, probably not. In actual fact, if you look at multiple different charts measured against ETH, like Solana against ETH, well, Solana is still more bullish than ETH, which means you're probably better off being in Solana anyway. All right, it takes time to reverse these trends. So we are long on Solana. That's one of the things we're long on. You can see our bots are up 53% on that. Our bots are up 17% already on 𝗬ie, and they're now starting to initiate the sell into the key zones over here, right? So as you can see over here, our bots are buying on the way down into the clear demand areas, and then as they push up, they're selling into the supply region. So far, this is playing out really, really well. There you can see Solana 275% grid arbitrage on the APR and 360% on 𝗬ie. I'm going to be opening up a bunch more of these, right? If you do want to trade these alongside me, in the link in the description below, it says Pinex. Click on that, right? Claim your sign-up bonus. You're getting up to $1,000 sign-up bonus. Once you get your sign-up bonus, you can actually copy these strategies by clicking those direct, or you can create your own. I'm going to be opening a couple more, probably about 2 or 3 more altcoins in the coming days once Bitcoin tests $95,000. So get your account ready on Pinex if you do want to follow on those trades, right? Let's have a look at a couple of the other coins over here. We can go into some of the altcoins. Remember, if you have been following the show each and every single day, if you've been in Whale Room, we've exited a long time ago, which means even entering right now, if the bottom is actually in, means you're buying much, much, much lower than where we originally exited, right? And that's the game, right? Buy low and sell high is the name of the game, or, short sell high and cover your shorts even lower. That's the other name of the game. So Zentry over here, one of the coins from the gaming sector, if you ever get a breakdown in that Bitcoin dominance and this starts to reclaim some of these key levels like 0.01350, I think that could be pretty good as a big deviation. The other main ones that we're looking at over here is Solana, right? What I like about Solana is, of course, firstly, it's deviated this key level, and I think this thing can squeeze easily to the yearly open, which would put at about 190, right? I'd probably be taking profits before then, probably likely around that 170, which is going to be generally in the middle of this range over here. If you're outlining the range between the range low and the range high, that's going to be approximately in that mid-level. But right now, it's looking good, especially if you look on the hourly. Have a look on the hourly over here. You can see price seems to be holding up over here, right? So I'm sure a lot of traders are going to be jumping into long trades over here, trying to play the move above the previous month's mid-range. That would probably have a tight stop loss underneath here. If you want a bit of a looser stop loss, you're going underneath the Monday low, right? For a lot of the coins, stop loss is below the Monday low. Remember, we have been trading the Monday range strategy quite often. So I think that the play would be to watch what Solana does. If it does deviate the Monday high, you're looking for a high low to form back at the mid-range, which is similar level to where we're currently at. If it can't hold that level, then it could sweep all the way back down. In that instance, we've probably got a trap scenario, and then you likely see a massive, massive deviation over here from the USDT dominance, which doesn't look likely to me right now, right? Which is part of the reason that I am currently trusting this pump? Because this does look like a real breakdown to me personally on the Bitcoin dominance, right? So therefore, again, a loose stop loss at about 136 on Solana, very tight stop loss, which means you have a high probability of getting stopped out, would be at about $138. And then you're looking at higher prices. Remember, in Whale Room, we also did drop a whole bunch of information on the 𝗬𝗎 trade, right? So if you took that trade with us, this is what we're looking at on 𝗬𝗎. We're looking at price coming into a 2-week key level over here, both diagonal and horizontal support. We're looking at the MACD as well on the weekly scale with the histograms lightening and starting to move towards the upside whilst hitting that key demand, the 3-day time frame MACD crossing towards the upside. And we had bullish divergence over here on the daily time frame as well. And that's consequently one of the reasons we looked at that 𝗬𝗎 trade. Now you're getting 𝗬𝗎 moving really, really nicely, right? Already approaching that key level. So I wouldn't necessarily blindly long into the zone because you're clearly coming into a key zone over here, which was your Monday high, as well as your previous month's mid-range, right? I think it's the previous month's mid. Let's just quickly see. Yes, it is. Or previous month's, previous month's mid-range. All right, so key levels over there, but you have the possibility when in doubt, zoom out to look on the daily time frame. You can see how key this level is, and theoretically, it's still all very, very early. So you're printing that RSI bullish divergence between these levels over here, price putting in lower lows. RSI was moving towards the upside over there, and now you have your high low in play, right? So this is essentially very, very similar with just that high-low formation, left shoulder, head, potential right shoulder. I don't love it as a chart pattern, but it is showing reaccumulation with high lows. So I like 𝗬𝗎 for potential move up again, at least to the Trump pump level, right? Which is going to be over here. This was the Trump pump coming into that zone over there. And if you can hold above the previous month's mid, you can talk about squeezing even as high as the yearly open. And then things could still be bearish, right? That could be a counter relief rally. You could still theoretically see a lower high form within that region and ultimately prices go down. But that move is pretty sizable, right? So we spoke about this. Wanting to be positioned on the sides of one of these relief rallies could be 100% move for altcoins. And we could be seeing that, right? So what else have we got? Let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you guys do want to have a look at. We can see, let's see, is there anything interesting on NEAR? So you can see for most of these coins, it's still very, very early. You can almost argue that it's too early, right? There's no need to FOMO into positions here, right? You can simply just wait for the market to prove to you that it's changing direction. And if you look on something like the daily, in order to do that, you would probably need to see a bit more of a squeeze, right? You need to see a squeeze, price come down, form a high low. Basically, when it comes to altcoins, the thing is you have a lot of time, right? There's no need to ape into positions over here, even if Bitcoin does squeeze to $95,000. All that we're suggesting over here is that for the first time in a long time, we're starting to see a slight shift within the market sentiment, right? We're seeing Bitcoin holding up above the stock market, right? Bitcoin holding key levels whereas the stock market can't. So it's not enough to consider it a deviation away from the norm or decorrelation away from the stock market. They still remain very, very correlated. But if it continues to maintain like this, then there is an opportunity that there is some decorrelation. All right. What else are we having a look at? Let's see. Jasmine, Bonk. We can look at some of the meme coins. I am actually curious how those meme coins would be holding up in this type of environment. That's also a good indication to see, are people bidding risk or not, right? Firstly, FARTCOIN has been one of the leaders within the market, and you can see FARTCOIN's already coming into some of these key zones over here. So most notably, you're coming into the yearly open over there. That's the first interesting point, but you are holding this key zone over here. So on a high time frame, how high could the squeeze? We spoke about it going to about 148, right? So that could easily squeeze to about 148 if strength continues. Let's look at some of the other major coins over here. We'll have a look at WIF. Let's see how WIF's doing. So again, still very, very low, basically at all-time lows, right? I mean, give or take, that's basically at all-time lows. Nobody has missed anything. This is still a downtrend by all intents and purposes. Lower lows and lower highs. The trend is your friend till the end. Maybe putting in a high low over there for the first time, but you haven't taken out that previous 48 cents region, which was your last lower high. If you start to break above this, again, that's a bit of an indication that maybe things are starting to shift. We're not at that point yet, right? But it is getting interesting. It is getting interesting. Let's have a look at Pepe. Obviously, also one of the biggest out there. 𝗵𝗡, very strong downtrend over here, putting in the first high low. It needs to take out these highs over here above 860 on a closing basis. Even better, I would prefer if you just could get above this consolidation level, right? So then I'd be looking at about 1039 of the last 4 digits. That is on 𝗵𝗡. If you can break above that, no need to chase, right? No need to chase. Then you can wait for the next major pullback, and then there'll be opportunity. Again, guys, absolutely no rush, right? Unless you're a low time frame trader and you feel the need to catch every single move. If you're a high time frame trader, no rush, no rush. All right. What else? Let's see. Mantra. How's Mantra hold up, right? Has there been any recovery? Actually, it's down 4%, working its way down towards new lows. Unbelievable. We spoke about this. This is probably the most likely area for Mantra to find major support is going to be coming into the yellow box. And that leaves it between 0.0274 and 0.1464, right? Percentage drawdown wise, well, from current levels, you know, that's still another 84%. Pretty serious downside. Let's have a look at 𝗬. 𝗬's put in some sizable moves, very, very big moves. So we'll have a look at 𝗬. How's 𝗬 holding up over here? You know, it's put in a sizable move, but in the greater scheme of things, it hasn't done much, right? It hasn't recovered the Trump pump yet. This is the Trump pump within this region over here. It needs to get above the previous month's high. And ultimately, until it does that, that could still be a struggle area. So I definitely wouldn't chase this. What I would do, if you are interested in any of these, is just track the FIB levels, right? Track the FIB levels, and then you're looking for how price holds up at the 50% level on a pullback, which currently would be 255 for 𝗬. All right, but it hit the key support. There was the key support, right? We spoke about that. Strong horizontal support. A lot of people probably bid it here because the alternative would be if it didn't hold that, you had a clear invalidation whereby it would probably come down to about 88. All right. Goku. I don't have Goku on this particular chart, but we can see if it comes up. Maybe it might. Let's see. Goku. I don't think this will have the full chart history, but there it is. Okay, Goku putting in the squeeze. I'm still holding all my tokens. Same story as the rest of them. A move to the yearly open is very, very likely, right? That's a squeeze up in about 129%. All right, Flare. We can have a look at Flare. I'm not sure I've ever heard of Flare, but let's pull it up. Is it this one? I'm going to go for the one on OKX, probably. Let's go. It must be this one, Flare. Let's go to Flare over here. Okay, it's clearly a new coin. There's not much I can say, guys. Brand new coin. It's only a couple of days old. Look at that. Illiquid. I can't even comment on this. All right. What else? What else, guys? Render. Let's have a look at Render. Render. Okay. All righty. Render. Let's see. Coming into resistance, this is price support, potential resistance over here. So you do need to be careful. But if it can keep maintaining above, I would say about 380. If it can hold above 380, you can probably continue that journey up to the yearly open, which is going to be $6.80. All right. Okay, we did whiff. We can look at Casper. How's Casper holding up? Most of these are still going to be near their lows, potentially still even to put in more new lows. But it's kind of playing out what we're looking at, right? We're looking at the downsloping trend line. We said we want to kind of see it start to reclaim some of these levels. Yeah, the equivalent of Bitcoin squeezing to 95 would put Casper up to about 10 cents, right? That's your major underside resistance. If it reclaims that, then things start to look really, really good. Okay, Sonic. We can have a look at Sonic. Where is SSS? How am I missing this? I know it's right here. I don't want to type it in, guys, because I know I have it. It should be right here at least. There it is. Got it. Got it. All right. So we can have a look at this. Is Sonic, previously called Phantom. You know, a really difficult one to chart because it's kind of all over the place. Even if you look at Phantom with a bit more price history, it just makes it a difficult one. But it's going to be similar to the rest of the coins. Just treat it as most coins would squeeze to the early open if Bitcoin does, which means, you know, you're looking at something like that, 79 cents. All right. Let's see. Brett. We can have a look at Brett. Brett, USDT. All right, cool. Hope you guys all had a good Easter weekend, by the way. Again, guys, make sure if you haven't already taken advantage of it, sign up using the 𝗪𝗔𝗚27. It's going to expire today. This promo code is going to expire today, and it is actually limited to the first people that join, right? I'm not sure how many spots we still have available. Last I checked, I think about 75% of them were taken. So you'll save 27% off if you type that in, the promo code 𝗪𝗔𝗚27, and that is to join Whale Room. All right, let's have a look at Brett. So Brett obviously had this downsloping trend line over here, started to break that key level, similar to Bitcoin needing to reclaim back above $88,000. The equivalent of Brett to start to get into a healthier position would be this, right? You need to see it break above the yellow line, which is about 0.041, right? That's the key level to maintain. If you can break above that level and leave this trading range at 46 cents, or sorry, 0.046 cents, then you're talking about bigger squeezes, possibly even as high as the yearly open, right? That creates big moves. So we could be in for some nice trades over the coming days and weeks, right? All right, we first need to confirm that this is not a trap. Remember, the puzzle pieces are coming together. First puzzle piece to suggest maybe not a trap is a break of that RSI. So now we're looking for relief rallies. Want to be very clear. These are relief rallies. Relief rallies is a sign of relief, right? It's not necessarily a trend reversal. We only get confirmation of the trend reversal if following the relief rally, we're actually printing higher lows. So high lows are, again, I'm expecting would therefore be a squeeze up to $92,000 to $95,000, and then putting in a high low around that $80,000 mark. If you do that, then we can start to entertain the possibility of trend reversal and answer the question, or the topic of today, is the bottom officially in? Can't answer the question today, is the bottom officially in, because we don't have confirmation of a trend reversal yet, right? Okay, cool. All right, so a lot to look at over there. Guys, if you do want all the trades, remember they are in Whale Room over here. You can see our traders have been crushing it. There's been a lot of different trade opportunities over the course of the weekend, both longs and shorts. So if you want to make your daily bread, it's in here, right? This is a place to be. All right. The risky stuff, Rody says, I don't know of this one. We can have a look at it. Let's see if anything comes up. USDT. Is this actually real? Australian Shepherd, is it this one? Because that does sound risky. But let's have a look. I don't know if this is the correct one. But yes, this would be a very risky trade, right? This is a super illiquid chart. No comments. Range lows 5 to 6, 7 are the last 4 digits. All right. Falling wedge target. The falling wedge target, where do I have that chart? Let me just quickly see if I can bring it up, because that was one of the things that we looked at for quite some time. Let me see if I can find that. Where's my falling wedge chart? I might have to redraw it. What we can do is we can just bring this one in. All right, so understand these are some of the key levels that need to be reclaimed. I'll draw the falling wedge in over here, but this was the falling wedge that we're looking at was within these key levels. Price was respecting that parallel channel towards the downside. So this is, one line that we would have been looking at, and this was the other line. That is the falling wedge. So if you're looking at the falling wedge target, should this break out, it's going to line up to very similar areas, right? So area number 1 of the falling wedge target is going to be situated between this order block and these highs. So again, right at that 95K level, that's target number 1. If it fulfills the move all the way to the top side, then you're talking about 106,000, which is basically taking you up towards those highs. Okay, so that is the falling wedge move, right? You're coming into the 200 moving average. Remember, this is the death cross region. Usually we see price rally into the so-called death crosses. They call it a death cross is when the 50 crosses below the 200. And this happens on both in crypto and on the stock market. And following the overextended move towards the downside, you expect price to magnetically pull back into that zone. And then that's where you see what things are made of, right? So this is still a very key level, but based on how many candle closes we've had back above the 50, it does increase the chances that you could explode back towards the upside over here, right? You've now had above the 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the 5th candle above that level, almost a week's worth of price actions, right? So big resistance over here, a lot of work to be done by the bulls, but it's a low volume environment, which means it can take a couple of players. And one of the things that we outlined on the weekend was we had somebody come in on Binance and 𝗙 $250 million into Bitcoin on the weekend. In a low volume environment, that's almost like putting in, 10x that, like a $2.5 to $5 billion trade, because it's a low volume environment, right? So you definitely want to see something like this, price hold up over here. You want to flip this level into support. The exact level that we're at now, don't get me wrong, this is resistance, right? But you want to flip this level into support. Based on the way that yesterday's candle looks, I do give bulls a big chance of breaking through this key level. All right. So it's currently a game of liquidity. Remember, we've been focusing on the liquidity over here. Let's zoom in. Let's see the 12-hour. 12-hour still has liquidity on the upside, $88,000. 24-hour look back period. Let's see where that's at. Same thing over here, $25 million worth of liquidity. Let's look on a high time frame, like a monthly. What is it? Does it give us any indication? We got a little bit of everything, right? Liquidity still remains high, even on the high time frame, all the way up here to these key levels. All right. And if you look at the deltas, which we drop in whale room, of course, the market's chasing positive deltas across the board. That's always one of the reasons you do have to be careful, right? Open interest building, deltas going positive. But when you pay attention into those key lows, there we go, with negative funding, it shows that they're trying to short the market. Bears are unable to break price down. That's an indication that you could be going through a bit of a shift. All right. It's almost too soon to tell, right? We have a lot of puzzle pieces coming together. But again, guys, it's not enough yet. It's not enough. If you're a super safe trader, you're probably better off waiting for proper trend reversal. If you're an aggressive trader, let's go back to this chart over here. If you're an aggressive trader, you're looking at this. I'm just going to clean up some of the mess on this chart. Take all of that off. So if you're an aggressive trader, you're looking at that. Possible break, sweep into $90,000 to $92,000 like that. Probably come back down, but you're maintaining above that candle, yesterday's candle low. You're maintaining above yesterday's candle low. That's the aggressive entry. All right. You're not an aggressive trader. You are an XRP trader, which means you're probably poor. So have fun staying poor. No, I'm just kidding. If you're a good XRP trader, I'm sure you've done well. XRP does provide some great volatility and ranges. All right, cool, guys. I think that's it from me. Let's cut over there. We don't want to go too long. I appreciate each and every single one of you for joining. Remember, if you want Binance bots, use the link below. We're going to be opening up 2 or 3 more trades coming very, very, very soon. So I'll see you all on the next one. Have a great day and cheers.